The stars look different here. Commander Jake Mitchell stood on the bridge of the USS Horizon, watching the blue-green planet grow larger on the main screen. His crew had been traveling for 6 months to reach this place. The planet was called Kepler 442b in their star charts, but they had picked up radio signals from its surface. Someone lived there. "Captain, we're getting more signals," said Lieutenant Amy Brooks from her station. She was the ship's communications officer and had been working day and night to decode the alien messages. "The patterns are getting clearer. It's definitely intelligent life." Jake nodded and looked around his bridge. Dr. Lisa Parker sat at the science station, studying readings from the planet below. She was their best expert on alien life forms, even though they had never found any before today. Colonel Ryan Davis stood near the weapons console, but his guns were powered down. This was supposed to be a peaceful meeting. "What do we know about them so far?" Jake asked Lisa. Lisa looked up from her screen. "The atmosphere is perfect for us to breathe. Lots of oxygen and water vapor. The planet is mostly covered in forests and grasslands. I'm seeing cities, but they're small and spread out. No big industrial areas like we have on Earth." "Any signs of weapons or military?" Ryan asked. He was always thinking about security. "Not really," Lisa said. "Their cities have some kind of energy barriers around them, but they look more like shields than weapons. Maybe for weather protection." Amy suddenly got excited at her station. "Captain, I think I've got something. They're trying to talk to U.S. directly now. The signal is coming from the largest city on the southern continent." Jake felt his heart beat faster. This was it. Humanity's first contact with aliens. He had dreamed about this moment since he was a child, but now that it was happening, he felt nervous and excited at the same time. "Put it on the main screen?" he ordered. The planet view changed to show a large room filled with tall, graceful beings. They looked like deer that had learned to walk on 2 legs, with long necks and large, gentle eyes. Their skin had a soft golden color, and they wore simple robes in different shades of green and brown. One of them stepped forward, clearly the leader. Amy worked with her translation computer. After a few minutes, a voice came through the speakers. It was musical and soft. "Greetings, travelers from the stars. We are the Zerathi of Zerium Prime. We welcome you in peace." Jake took a deep breath. "This is Commander Jake Mitchell of the human vessel USS Horizon. We come in peace as well. We're honored to meet you." The alien leader, who had introduced herself as High Arbiter Velthara, seemed pleased. "We have watched your ship approach for many days. We are curious about your people. You look very different from us." Over the next few hours, both sides shared basic information. The humans learned that the Zerathi had been living on their planet for thousands of years. They were a peaceful people who loved art, music, and growing things. They had developed technology slowly and carefully, always trying to work with nature instead of against it. The Zerathi were amazed to learn about Earth and its many different environments. They were especially surprised that humans came from a world with deserts, frozen ice caps, and deep oceans. Their own world was much more stable, with gentle seasons and few extreme weather events. "Your world sounds very challenging," Velthara said. "How do your people survive in such harsh places?" Jake smiled. "Humans are good at adapting. We learn to live almost anywhere." Lisa added, "We'd love to learn more about your world too. Your cities look beautiful from space. And those energy barriers are fascinating technology." For a moment, Velthara's expression became more serious. "The barriers are necessary for our survival. Our world is peaceful, but it has dangers. There are creatures here that even we must avoid." Ryan leaned forward. "What kind of creatures?" "The Shadow Maw," Velthara said, and several other Zerathi behind her made soft, worried sounds. "They are the masters of our world. Ancient, powerful, and very dangerous. We have learned to live around them, but we can never live without fear of them." Jake was curious. "How big are they?" "Larger than your ship's shuttles," Velthara explained. "They hunt in the darkness and can become invisible by changing their skin color. Their bite is poisonous, and they are faster than any of our vehicles. We built our cities with barriers to keep them out. Lisa was taking notes quickly. How many of them are there? We do not know exactly, perhaps hundreds across our world. They live long lives and have few young, but they are perfect hunters. Nothing on our world can challenge them. Have you tried fighting them? Ryan asked. The question seemed to shock the Zirathi. Several of them stepped back, and Velthara looked confused. Fight them? Why would we fight them? They are the apex predators of our world. They have earned their place through millions of years of evolution. We respect them and avoid them. That is the natural way. Jake could see that Ryan wanted to ask more questions, but he gave his military officer a warning look. They were guests here, and they needed to be respectful. We understand. Jake said, every world has its own balance. We're just curious because humans sometimes have to deal with dangerous animals on our world too. You have apex predators on your world as well? Velthara asked. We have many dangerous animals, Lisa explained. Bears, sharks, big cats, poisonous snakes. But humans have learned ways to protect ourselves and our communities. The Zirathi looked interested and worried at the same time. Jake decided to change the subject before things got complicated. Hi, Arbiter, we would be honored if some of our people could visit your world. And perhaps some of your people would like to see our ship. We could learn much from each other. Velthara's face brightened. That would be wonderful. We have prepared a welcome ceremony in our capital city. Your people would be safe within our barriers. As they made plans for the cultural exchange, Jake felt optimistic. The Zirathi seemed like good people who wanted peace and friendship. Their technology was different from human technology, but it was clearly advanced. Lisa was already excited. About studying their biotechnology and energy barriers, Ryan still looked concerned about the Shadowmaw creatures, but Jake wasn't worried. The Zirathi had lived with these predators for thousands of years. Surely a few humans could visit safely for a short time. Amy continued working with the Zirathi communication experts to improve their translation systems. Soon they would be able to talk much more easily. Jake was already looking forward to learning about Zirathi art and music. Captain, Lisa said quietly, this could be the most important discovery in human history. A peaceful, advanced civilization that wants to be friends with us? Think about what we could learn from each other. Jake nodded. Get the shuttle ready. Tomorrow we make history. As the USS Horizon moved into orbit around the beautiful green world below, none of the humans realized that their simple presence would soon challenge everything the Zirathi believed about strength, survival, and the natural order of things. The meeting of two very different species was about to teach both sides lessons they never expected to learn. The shuttle touched down gently on a landing pad made of smooth, white stone. Jake looked out the window at his first alien city. The buildings were tall and curved, growing from the ground like giant trees. Everything was painted in soft colors. That reminded him of a forest in spring. Green vines covered many walls and flowers bloomed everywhere. It's beautiful, Lisa said, pressing her face to the window. Look how they've made their technology work with nature instead of replacing it. Ryan was more focused on the defenses. Those energy barriers are impressive. I can see them shimmering in the air about 50 feet up. They cover the whole city like a dome. Amy was recording everything with her camera. The people back on Earth won't believe this place exists. A group of Zirathi waited for them at the landing pad. Velthara stood in front, wearing a robe decorated with silver threads that caught the sunlight. Behind her were other officials and what looked like scientists or scholars. They all seemed excited, but also nervous. Welcome to our world, friends. From Earth, Velthara said as the humans stepped off their shuttle. We have prepared a tour of our city for you. We want to show you how we live. Jake shook her hand, which felt warm and surprisingly strong. Thank you for inviting us. We're eager to learn about your people. As they walked through the city, Jake was amazed by everything he saw. The streets were wide and clean, with small streams of clear water running alongside them. The Zirathi had built their homes into living trees, carefully shaping the wood as it grew. Children played in parks filled with flowers that sang soft melodies when the wind touched them. How do you make the flowers sing? Lisa asked. A young Zirathi scientist named Kexara explained. We guide their growth with sound frequencies. The plants learn to make music as they grow. It takes many years, but it makes our cities more peaceful. Ryan was more interested in the barriers. These energy shields, how strong are they? Strong enough to stop a shadow maw, Valthara said, and several nearby Zirathi made worried sounds. The barriers can resist their claws and even their acid spit, but we must always keep them powered. A barrier failure means death for everyone in the city. How often do they attack? Jake asked. Perhaps once or twice each season, Valthara explained. Usually at night, but sometimes during the day if they are very hungry. When the alarms sound, everyone must get to the shelters immediately. Lisa pulled out her tablet and showed them pictures of Earth animals. On our world, we have dangerous predators too. Lions, tigers, bears, crocodiles. But humans have learned to live alongside them. The Zirathi looked at the pictures with fascination and horror. A large male named Thyman spoke up. These creatures are smaller than shadow maws, but they look fierce. How do humans survive them? We build barriers too, Ryan said, but we also hunt them if they threaten our people. We've learned to fight back. The Zirathi looked shocked. Several of them stepped backward. Valthara's eyes went wide. Fight them? You mean you attack these apex predators? Sometimes we have to, Jake explained carefully. If a dangerous animal threatens human children or communities, we protect ourselves. But that goes against the natural order, Kexara said. Apex predators earn their place through evolution. They are meant to be at the top. Lisa tried to help. Humans are also part of evolution. We developed intelligence and tools to survive. That's natural for us too. The conversation was getting uncomfortable, so Valthara suggested they continue the tour. She led them to a tall tower in the center of the city. From the top, they could see for miles in every direction. The landscape was beautiful, with rolling hills covered in purple grass and forests of silver-leaf trees. Your world is like a paradise, Amy said, taking pictures. It is beautiful, Valthara agreed, but also dangerous. Do you see those dark areas in the forest? Those are shadow maw hunting grounds. We never go there. Ryan studied the terrain with his binoculars. Those areas look like they have good water sources and plenty of game animals. Yes, but they belong to the shadow maws. We learned long ago to let them have the best hunting areas. It keeps them away from our cities most of the time. Lisa was taking readings with her scientific instruments. The biodiversity here is incredible. You must have thousands of species we've never seen before. Many live in the hunting grounds. Diamond said sadly, we can only study them from a distance. It is too dangerous to get close. As they toured more of the city, the humans learned about Zirathi society. They were vegetarians who grew their food in careful gardens. They had no military-only city guards who watched for shadow maw signs. Their art was beautiful, and their music was peaceful. They seemed to live in harmony with everything except their world's apex predators. How long have the shadow maws been on your world? Jake asked. Forever, Valthara said. Our oldest stories tell of them. They have always been the masters here. We are grateful they allow us to share their world. Ryan frowned. Allow you? This is your world too. You built these cities. You developed this technology. We are guests here, Kexara explained. The shadow maws could kill us all if they wanted to. We survive because we stay out of their way and don't challenge them. The tour continued until late afternoon. The humans saw schools where Zirathi children learned to hide and be quiet. They saw workshops where artists created beautiful things, but always near escape tunnels. They saw gardens that could be abandoned quickly if the alarm sounded, everything in Zirathi. Society was built around avoiding the shadow MAWS. As the sun began to set, they returned to the city center. Valthara was explaining their evening protocols when suddenly loud sirens began wailing. Every Zirathi in sight froze in terror. Shadow maw alert, Valthara said, her voice shaking. Everyone to the shelters immediately. The Zirathi began running toward large buildings with thick walls. Parents grabbed their children, workers dropped their tools and ran. Guards activated additional barrier controls. The peaceful city became a scene of controlled panic. Jake and his team were rushed toward a shelter, but Ryan stopped and pointed toward the edge of the city. There by the forest line. At first, Jake saw nothing. Then the air seemed to shimmer and a massive shape became visible. The Shadow Maw was enormous, easily the size of a small building. It looked like a panther crossed with a dragon, with sleek fur that changed colors to match its surroundings. Its eyes glowed yellow in the growing darkness. "My God," Lisa whispered. "It's beautiful and terrifying at the same time." The creature moved with impossible grace for something so large. It approached the city's barrier and sniffed the air. Its head turned toward the humans, and Jake felt like it was looking directly at him. "Please, come to the shelter," Valthara begged. "If the barrier fails, we will all die." But the humans stood frozen, watching the magnificent predator. It circled the city's edge for several minutes, testing the barrier with gentle touches of its massive paws. Sparks flew where it touched the energy field. Amy was recording everything. "The way it moves, it's like it's studying the defenses." "It's intelligent," Lisa said. "Look at its eyes. It's thinking, planning." Finally, the Shadow Maw seemed to lose interest. It faded back into invisibility and disappeared into the forest. The alarm stopped, but the Zirathi remained in there. Shelters for another hour. When they finally emerged, they looked exhausted and frightened. Valthara approached the humans with amazement. "You did not run to the shelters. You watched it." "We wanted to learn about it," Jake said. "Were you not afraid?" Ryan smiled grimly. "We were afraid, but we were also curious. On Earth, we studied dangerous animals to understand them better." The Zirathi looked at each other with expressions the humans couldn't read. Some seemed impressed. Others looked worried. "Your people are very strange," Valthara said finally. "But perhaps that is not a bad thing." As they prepared to return to their shuttle for the night, Jake wondered what other surprises this cultural exchange would bring. The Shadow Maw had been magnificent, but he could understand why the Zirathi feared it. Still, something about their complete submission to these predators bothered him. On Earth, humans had faced similar challenges and found ways to survive and thrive. Maybe they could help their new friends find a better balance with their world's apex predators. That evening, the humans gathered in their guest quarters inside the Zirathi city. The building was beautiful, with walls made of living wood and windows that looked out over the glowing gardens. But Jake could see that his team was troubled by what they had learned. "I still can't believe it," Ryan said, pacing around the room. "An entire civilization living in fear of a few hundred predators. They have energy barriers, advanced technology, and they just hide." Lisa looked up from her notes. "It's not that simple, Ryan. Their whole culture is built around harmony and balance. They don't think like we do." "But they're not living," Amy said. "They're just surviving." "Did you see how scared those children were? They spend their whole lives afraid." Jake sat by the window, watching the Zirathi guards patrol the barriers. "We have to respect their choices. This isn't our world." "One shot," Ryan muttered. "One well-placed shot could drop that thing we saw today. Then their children could play outside the barriers." "And then what?" Lisa asked. "You kill one Shadow Maw, and the others might become more aggressive. We don't know how they'll react." Jake stood up. "Enough. We're guests here. We observe and learn, but we don't interfere. That's an order." Ryan nodded, but Jake could see he wasn't happy about it. The soldier in him wanted to solve problems with action, not acceptance. They were getting ready for bed when Amy's communication device beeped. She answered it quickly. "This is Amy Brooks." A panicked voice came through the speaker. It was Sergeant Tony Rodriguez from their shuttle. "Lieutenant, I need help. I'm outside the barriers and something's wrong." Jake grabbed the communicator. "Tony, what's your position?" "I got a distress signal from the eastern sector. Sounded like someone was in trouble? I went to investigate, but now I can't find my way back and the shuttle's communication system is down." Ryan was already putting on his gear. I'm going after him. Wait, Jake said. He activated the emergency channel to contact the Zirathi guards. Within minutes, Velthara and several guards arrived at their quarters. One of our people is outside the barriers, Jake explained. He was trying to help someone. Velthara's face went pale. Outside the barriers? At night? We must organize a rescue immediately. The guards began preparing emergency equipment. They had special vehicles with portable barrier generators and bright lights, but Jake could see they were terrified. Has anyone ever been rescued from outside the barriers before? Lisa asked. Once, Velthara said quietly. 3 years ago. But we only found pieces. Meanwhile, Tony Rodriguez was discovering that the distress signal had been a false alarm. His equipment had picked up interference from the Zirathi communication systems. But now he was lost in the rocky hills east of the city, and night was falling fast. He tried to contact the shuttle, but something was jamming his signals. The rocks around him were tall and sharp, forming a maze of canyons and caves. In the darkness, everything looked the same. Tony had been a soldier for 15 years. He had fought in conflicts on 3 different planets. But this place felt different. The silence was too complete. The shadows moved wrong. And there was a smell in the air that made his skin crawl. He found a defensible position between 2 large rocks and checked his equipment. He had his sidearm, a plasma cutter for emergency repairs, some emergency rations, and a small explosive charge meant for clearing debris. Not much against a creature the size of a building. Back in the city, the rescue team was almost ready. But as they prepared to leave, the alarms began wailing again. The guards checked their sensors and turned to Velthara with fear in their eyes. High Arbiter, there is a Shadow Maw in the eastern sector, very close to where the human is lost. Velthara closed her eyes. Then it is too late. We cannot send people to their deaths. Jake felt anger rising in his chest. You're just going to abandon him? We cannot fight a Shadow Maw, Velthara said. No one can. I am sorry, but your friend is already dead. Ryan stepped forward. Give me a weapon and a vehicle. I'll go alone. It would be suicide, one of the guards said. Shadow Maws can sense fear. They hunt by scent and sound. In the darkness, you would never see it coming. Jake was about to argue when Amy's communicator crackled to life. Tony's voice came through. But it was different now, calm and focused. Anyone listening, this is Rodriguez. I've got company out here, big, ugly, and unfriendly. If I don't make it back, tell my sister I tried to help someone. Rodriguez out? The line went dead. In the rocky canyon, Tony had found the Shadow Maw before it found him. The creature was magnificent and terrifying, moving through the darkness like liquid shadow. Its fur shifted colors constantly, making it almost impossible to track. But Tony had learned to hunt dangerous things on other worlds. He stayed perfectly still and watched. The creature was hunting by scent, following his trail through the rocks. It moved with the confidence of something that had never been challenged. Tony waited until it was close enough, then he acted. The plasma cutter beam struck the Shadow Maw in the shoulder, cutting deep into muscle and bone. The creature roared, a sound like thunder and breaking glass. It spun toward Tony, its yellow eyes blazing with rage and pain. Tony rolled behind a rock as massive claws scraped stone where he had been standing. The creature's acid spit hissed and steamed where it hit the ground. This thing was everything the Zirathi had said it was. Fast, powerful, and deadly, but Tony Rodriguez had survived gang wars in the Mars colonies and monster hunts on Titan. He knew how to fight things bigger and stronger than himself. The Shadow Maw charged, and Tony used its own momentum against it. He triggered the explosive charge and threw it into the creature's path just as it leaped. The explosion brought down a section of the canyon wall, tons of rock crashing down on the massive predator. When the dust settled, the Shadow Maw lay trapped. Under the rocks, its back broken, breathing weakly. Tony approached carefully, his plasma cutter ready. The creature looked at him with those intelligent yellow eyes, and for a moment he felt sorry for it. Nothing personal, he said, and ended. Its suffering quickly. By the time the rescue team found him, Tony had already begun field dressing the massive creature. He had grown up hunting deer and elk with his grandfather in Colorado. The principle was the same, even if the scale was different. "Holy Mother of God," Ryan whispered when he saw the scene. The Shadow Maw was even bigger up close, and Tony had killed it with basic equipment and clever tactics. The Zirathi rescue team stood frozen in shock. Velthara stared at the dead predator, then at Tony, then back at the creature. "This is impossible," she whispered. "No one can kill a Shadow Maw." Tony looked up from his work, blood on his hands and a satisfied expression on his face. "Well, it's dead now, and there's enough meat here to feed half your city. Shame to let it go to waste." The Zirathi looked like they might faint. Amy was recording everything. Lisa was taking scientific readings of the creature. Ryan was grinning with pride. Jake realized that everything was about to change. The Zirathi had lived with their fears for thousands of years, but now they had seen something impossible. A human had faced their ultimate nightmare and won. "Tony," Jake said quietly, "I think you just changed history." Tony shrugged and went back to his work. "Just doing what needed doing, Captain. My grandfather always said you don't waste good meat." As the news spread through the city, Jake wondered how the Zirathi would react to learning that their apex predators could be hunted, killed, and eaten. This cultural exchange was about to become much more complicated. The news spread through the Zirathi city like wildfire. By morning, every citizen knew that the impossible had happened. A human had killed a Shadow Maw. Not with advanced technology or massive weapons, but with basic tools and clever thinking. Jake woke up to find crowds of Zirathi gathered outside their guest quarters. They stood in small groups, talking in hushed voices and pointing at the building. Some looked amazed. Others looked frightened. Many seemed confused, as if their entire understanding of the world had been turned upside down. "Captain," Amy said, checking her messages, "we've got communication requests from every major city on the planet. Word is spreading fast." Lisa was studying readings from her equipment. "The biological samples from the Shadow Maw are incredible. This creature was perfectly adapted for hunting. Enhanced muscles, specialized organs, natural camouflage systems. It really was the perfect predator." "Was being the key phrase," Ryan said with satisfaction. Tony proved that perfect doesn't mean invincible. Tony himself seemed unbothered by all the attention. He sat by the window, cleaning his equipment, and watching the Zirathi crowds with mild curiosity. "They act like I did something special," he said. "Back home, my Uncle Jake killed a grizzly bear with a hunting knife when it attacked his family. That was impressive." This was just doing what needed doing. A gentle knock came at their door. Velthara entered with several other Zirathi officials. She looked like she hadn't slept all night. Her usually neat robes were wrinkled, and her large eyes were wide with stress. "Commander Mitchell," she said formally, "the High Council has called an emergency session. They request your presence, and especially the presence of Sergeant Rodriguez." Jake could see that this was serious. "Of course. Is there a problem?" "Problem?" Velthara laughed, but there was no humor in it. "A human has killed one of our world's apex predators. Some of our people think this is a miracle. Others think it is a crime against nature. The council doesn't know what to think." As they walked through the city toward the council chambers, Jake noticed the changes. Zirathi, who had been friendly the day before, now stared at them with a mixture of awe and fear. Children were kept close to their parents. Guards watched the humans more carefully, but there were other changes too. Some Zirathi, especially the younger ones, looked at them with something that might have been hope. The council chamber was a large, circular room with walls covered in living vines. The High Council consisted of 12 elderly Zirathi, each representing a different aspect of their society. Velthara took her place as High Arbiter, but Jake could see she was nervous. "Humans of Earth," she began formally, "you have brought great confusion to our world. For thousands of years we have lived with the understanding that Shadow Maws are the ultimate predators. They cannot be fought, they cannot be defeated. They are the masters of our world." An elderly male named Zorthik spoke next. Yet one of your people has done the impossible. He has killed a Shadow Maw with primitive weapons? How do we understand this? Tony stepped forward. With respect, sir, there's nothing to understand. It was just a big predator. Bigger than most, but still just an animal. Animals can be hunted if you're smart about it. The council members made shocked sounds. A female named Sowara spoke with anger in her voice. Just an animal? The Shadow Maws are the pinnacle of evolution on our world. They are sacred. They maintain the balance of nature, Lisa tried to help. On our world, humans are part of that balance too. We evolved intelligence and tool use to survive alongside dangerous predators. That's our natural adaptation, Zorthik shook his head. But this disrupts everything. If Shadow Maws can be killed, then what does that mean for our society? Our entire culture is built around avoiding them. Jake could see where this was going. High Arbiter, we understand this is difficult. But maybe this is an opportunity to find a new balance. Before anyone could respond, a younger Zirathi rushed into the chamber. It was Kexara, the scientist they had met the day before. Forgive the interruption, she said breathlessly, but there are developments in the city. News of the Shadow Maw's death has reached the outer settlements. Some of the younger citizens are gathering near the barriers. They want to see the creature's body. Velthara looked alarmed. That could be dangerous. If they lose respect for the Shadow Maws, they might take foolish risks. Or maybe they'll finally be able to live without constant fear, Tony said quietly. The comment caused an uproar in the council. Several members began speaking at once, their voices rising in agitation. Jake realized that Tony's simple act of self-defense had created a crisis that went to the heart of Zirathi society. Please, Jake said, raising his voice to get attention. May we suggest something? Tony has offered to prepare some of the Shadow Maw meat for a meal. Perhaps sharing food would help us understand each other better. The silence that followed was deafening. Several council members looked horrified. Others seemed curious despite themselves. Eat it? Sowara whispered. You want to eat a Shadow Maw? Where I come from, Tony said, when you kill something for survival, you honor it by not wasting it. The meat shouldn't go bad while we argue about philosophy. Zorthik leaned forward. You have eaten apex predators before? Sure, Tony replied. Bear, mountain lion, shark. If it tries to eat you, it's fair game to eat it back. Amy was recording the council's reactions. Their faces showed a mixture of fascination and horror that would have been funny if the situation weren't so serious. This is madness, another council member said. Humans are not apex predators. How can you hunt creatures that are superior to you? Ryan spoke up for the first time. Who says they're superior? They're big and strong, but they're not smarter than us. Intelligence beats strength if you use it right. Lisa pulled out her tablet again. Look, on Earth, humans hunt creatures much larger than ourselves. We've been doing it for hundreds of thousands of years. It's how we survived and spread across our planet. She showed them pictures of human hunters with elephants, whales, and other massive animals. The Zirathi stared at the images in amazement. Your people are predators, Velthara said slowly, as if the idea was just occurring to her. We're omnivores, Lisa corrected. We eat plants and animals. But yes, humans are also predators. We just don't look like what you expect predators to look like. The revelation seemed to stun the council. They had met humans and seen them as small, soft, harmless creatures. Now they were learning that these seemingly gentle beings were actually predators from a world where they hunted giants. If this is true, Kexara said excitedly, then humans might be the apex predators of their own world. Jake smiled. We're certainly near the top of the food chain, but we don't rule by fear. We share our world with other species and try to find balance. Tony, who had been quiet during the philosophical discussion, spoke up again. Look, I've got the meat prepared and cooking equipment set up outside. Anyone who wants to try some is welcome. Anyone who doesn't want to try it doesn't have to. But the offer's there. The council members looked at each other uncertainly. Finally, Velthara stood up. I think, she said slowly, that we need to see this for ourselves. If humans can treat our ultimate predators as simply another meal, then perhaps we need to understand what that means. As they left the council chamber, Jake noticed that word had spread even further. More Zirathi had gathered outside, and he could see groups of them talking intensely. Some looked angry. Others looked excited. A few looked scared. The cultural exchange had become something much bigger than anyone had planned. The simple act of one human defending himself was challenging thousands of years of Zirathi beliefs about their place in the natural order. Jake wondered if they were witnessing the beginning of a revolution in how an entire species saw themselves and their world, and it had all started with Tony Rodriguez refusing to become someone else's dinner. By the time they reached the cooking area outside the guest quarters, word had spread to settlements across the planet. Tony had set up a simple field kitchen using portable equipment from their shuttle. The smell of cooking meat filled the air. Rich and surprisingly pleasant, a crowd of Zirathi had gathered at a safe distance. Most watched with curiosity, but some looked horrified. A few of the younger ones had moved closer. Drawn by the amazing smell, Tony worked calmly at his grill, turning thick steaks with practiced skill. "Smells good, doesn't it?" he said to Jake. "Reminds me of the barbecues my grandfather used to make back in Texas." Velthara approached slowly, her nose twitching at the aroma. Despite her obvious fear, Jake could see she was fascinated. "It does smell appealing," she admitted quietly. "But this feels wrong, like we are violating something sacred." Lisa had been studying the crowd. "Look at the young ones. They're not as afraid as their elders. This might be generational." She was right. The older Zirathi hung back, clearly disturbed by what they were seeing. But the younger adults and adolescents pressed closer, their large eyes wide with curiosity and something that looked like hunger. A group of young Zirathi approached the cooking area. Their leader was a female named Zixandra, who introduced herself as a junior member of the city guard. She was younger than most Zirathi they had met, with brighter coloring and a bolder manner. "Human Tony," she said formally, "may we ask you questions about hunting?" The older Zirathi made shocked sounds, but Zixandra ignored them. "We have heard stories from our grandparents about Zirathi who once tried to fight back against the Shadow Maws. They all died, so we learned that resistance was impossible. But you succeeded where they failed." "How?" Tony flipped another steak and thought about his answer. "I didn't try to be stronger than it, I tried to be smarter. Used its own strength against itself. Made it come to me where I had advantages." Another young guard stepped forward. "Could you teach us these methods?" The question caused an uproar among the older Zirathi. Several of them began arguing loudly. Velthara looked torn between fascination and fear. "Teaching hunting methods would change everything," she said. "Our entire society would need to be rebuilt." Jake saw an opportunity. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Change can be scary, but it can also bring growth. Ryan had been watching the crowd dynamics. "High Arbiter, look at your young people. They're not afraid anymore. For the first time in their lives, they're seeing hope instead of just fear." An elderly Zirathi named Mordic pushed through the crowd. "This is madness," he declared. "Humans, you do not understand what you have done. The Shadow Maws have kept the balance for millions of years. If we start hunting them, what will happen to our ecosystem?" Lisa pulled out her scientific readings. "Actually, sir, I think your ecosystem might be out of balance already. The Shadow Maws seem to be overpopulated for apex predators. They may be preventing other species from thriving." She showed her data to the gathered Zirathi. "Look at these biodiversity readings. The areas controlled by Shadow Maws have much less variety of life than they should. The predators may be suppressing the natural development of your world." Dr. Kexara studied the information eagerly. "This suggests that controlled hunting might actually improve the balance, not destroy it." The debate continued as Tony finished cooking. He had prepared enough meat for about 20 people, cut into small portions so everyone could try some if they wanted to. "Dinner's ready," he announced simply. The humans were the first to try the meat. Jake took a bite and was surprised by the Flavor, it was rich and complex, with a taste somewhere between venison and fish. The texture was firm but tender. "It's actually quite good," he said honestly. Amy tried a piece and nodded. "Better than some of the ration packs we eat on the ship." Lisa was taking notes on the flavor and texture for her scientific report. Ryan ate his portion with obvious satisfaction. The Zirathi watched this with amazement. The humans were casually eating their ultimate nightmare, and they seemed to be enjoying it. Zixandra was the first Zirathi to approach the serving area. "May I try a small piece?" The crowd went silent. Even the younger Zirathi looked shocked by her boldness. Velthara started to object, but stopped herself. "It is your choice," the High Arbiter said quietly. Zixandra took a small piece of meat and examined it carefully. She sniffed it, then took a tiny bite. Her eyes went wide with surprise. "It tastes like victory," she said quietly. Her words seemed to unlock something in the other young Zirathi. One by one, they began approaching the cooking area. Not all of them tried the meat, but many did. Each one who tasted it seemed to stand a little taller afterward. The older Zirathi watched in amazement as their young people shared a meal made from their greatest fear. Finally, Velthara herself approached. "Tony, human, you have changed my people in ways I do not fully understand. But I see something in our young ones that I have never seen before. They look at the future with hope instead of fear." She took a small piece of meat and held it for a long moment. "If I do this, there is no going back. I will have crossed a line that my ancestors never crossed." "Sometimes crossing lines is how you grow," Jake said gently. Velthara put the meat in her mouth and chewed slowly. Her expression changed from fear to surprise, to something that might have been wonder. "It tastes like freedom," she whispered as. The evening continued. More and more Zirathi tried the meat. Not everyone, but enough to show that something fundamental was changing. The younger generation especially seemed energized by the experience. Zixandra gathered a group of young guards. "Around Tony? Will you teach us to hunt? Will you show us how to protect ourselves instead of just hiding?" Before Tony could answer, Velthara spoke up. "This is not a decision to make lightly. If we learn to hunt shadow maws, we become a different people. We would need to think carefully about what that means." Jake saw an opportunity for compromise. "What if we started with a joint research program? Humans and Zirathi working together to study the shadow maws and develop better ways to coexist with them. Some might choose to learn hunting techniques. Others might develop better barriers or warning systems. Everyone contributes according to their comfort level." Dr. Kexara got excited. "Yes! We could establish research stations in the hunting grounds. With human protection, we could finally study our own world properly." The idea seemed to appeal to both the conservative and progressive Zirathi. It offered change for those who wanted it, but gradual change that wouldn't destroy their society overnight. As the gathering broke up, Velthara pulled Jake aside. "Commander, your people have given us a gift I did not expect. You have shown us that we are not helpless. That is worth more than any technology you could share." Jake smiled. "High Arbiter, your people have given us something valuable too. You've, shown us the importance of living in harmony with nature. Maybe together we can find a better balance than either of our species achieved alone." As the humans prepared to return to their ship the next day, they left behind a world in transformation. The Zirathi were still debating what to do about the shadow maws, but they were debating as equals. Not as prey. Zixandra and several other young Zirathi had volunteered for the first joint research expedition. They would accompany human scientists to establish monitoring stations in Shadow Maw territory. Tony, for his part, seemed amused by all the fuss his actions had caused. "All this because I didn't want to get eaten," he told Jake as they boarded their shuttle. "Sometimes the biggest changes start with the simplest actions," Jake replied as the USS Horizon departed Zarian Prime. Both species were already planning their future cooperation. The humans had found allies who understood the importance of balance and harmony. The Zirathi had found friends who could teach them that survival and growth were not mutually exclusive, and in the cities below, young Zirathi looked up at the stars and dreamed of a future where fear no longer ruled their lives. They had learned that even the mightiest predators could be faced and overcome. More importantly, they had learned that they were stronger than they had ever imagined.